everyone. Welcome to our series, Understanding People, brought to you by Get Abstract. My name is Kirsten Muller-Doberman, and I am your host. So in this season, we are exploring how we can view the change and uncertainty brought about by everything that has happened in the last year into opportunity for both personal and professional growth. And every episode, we've been exploring a different how-to theme. So how to manage conflict, how to manage virtual teams. And of course, if you want to watch any of those episodes, you can go onto our Get Abstract website or our LinkedIn page to see those. But we've been looking at how to manage these difficult problems that might come up in our personal and professional lives so that we can understand each other better and build an operating framework through which we can work so that no matter what comes up in 2021, that we can handle things from a place where we understand ourselves and our colleagues well. So today we are going to be talking about how to prevent burnout. But we're going to be looking at that through the lens of how to manage our ambition and our drive well so that it serves us and creates sustainable growth rather than leading to frustration and burnout. And with us to discuss that is Nicolai Tillisch. So first of all, welcome, Nicolai, to the show.
Thank you so much, Kirsten. I really look forward.
Absolutely. So just to tell you a little bit more about Nicolai, he is an executive coach, a facilitator, and an author, having just recently released and co-authored with Chen Nielsen the book Return on Ambition, a radical approach to achievement, growth, and well-being. And of course, you can read that in our Get Abstract library. It's a new release, but of course, you should read the whole thing. He's joining us today from Copenhagen, Denmark. So Nicolai, first of all, why did you write the book? And can you explain the title, Return on Ambition?
Yeah. So Nicolai and I have worked together, we work with leaders, and we work with leaders in international companies. And we found a need to actually share some of the things that very few leaders have access to, because when you look at the most sophisticated leadership development programs corporations offer, they do some quite innovative stuff that most people actually don't have access to. And there have been an assumption that it was very sophisticated, so it had to be done by coaches live. And we were a little bit, can we crack the code and actually, we even use the word democratize? Can we share some of these tricks with people who are not invited for these programs and who feel that capable coaches are very expensive? I mean, in particular, if you have to pay out of your own pocket. So that was how it came about. And then when we worked with the book, one of the things we really found out was, because there's so much written on leadership, and we wanted to kind of find something that as many people could relate to as possible. And one of the findings we actually had was that most people who get leadership positions are driven by ambitions. And often what makes them not very good leaders is actually that those same ambitions, because it's so important for them to all the time move forward that they are not necessarily very good leaders. And then suddenly we said, if we look at ambition, we don't need to write a leadership book. We can write a more general book. And then we studied it. And basically our offer to our readers is, we can help you reflect on what you get out of your ambitions. I mean, your return on ambition. You can reflect on, could you get more success, more fulfillment in life out of what you're already doing? Or could you sustain the current level of success, but with less effort and also with less personal sacrifices? So that's where it came from.
Yeah, I love using that, that play on words, return on investment, return on ambition, because as you write about, ambition can lead to good things, obviously, but it can also have a negative impact. And you talk about that topic of without so much sacrifice. Can you talk about what elements of ambition, if not kept in check, can lead to things like burnout?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we looked at in the book is virtues of ambition. So some of the strengths of ambitious people. And we call it the frenemies, because these are not only helping people, but they are often actually the biggest hindrance, and often subconsciously, because you're so much into doing whatever you are doing that you don't see the flip side before, afterwards, if you ever see it. And I'd say one of these frenemies we call perseverance. And I can also just share a brief personal story about it, because that's a frenemy I know particularly well. So now you interview me, Kirsten, about my new book, and I'm actually dyslexic. And I'm one of the few dyslexic people who ever made it into McKinsey as a consultant. I mean, it's really not like a qualification to be dyslexic to get in there. But I was so insistent that I wanted to learn to read and write, even though I clearly had a handicap in school and got extra support and all this. So I think that, you can say, virtue or frenemy has in me meant that I can work incredibly hard and I don't give up. But the flip side of that is also I very easily exhaust myself. I very easily just ignore that there are only 24 hours a day, and I push myself incredibly hard. I've actually never burned out, but I've been so incredibly close. I once had a doctor laughing when he said, "How do you live your life?" Because I complained about being exhausted. And he was just laughing and said, "What did you expect?"
Yeah. Can I ask you just personally, how did you come to learn that about yourself and catch it before it led to, because I mean, burnout and rehabilitation, people obviously having to take leave or time off to manage that when it becomes a crisis, it's very real. And I think it's increasing as a result of the pandemic and work from home and things. How did you get to a point where you were able to recognize that within yourself and stop or make adjustments before it got to be a crisis moment?
Yeah, and I mean, when you say it, Kirsten, I also really feel for this, because I have people very close to me who have, gone down with stress and other variations of burnout. And I can also see how a lot of people, a lot of my clients right now are really exhausted. Really, this little more than a year when we have had the pandemic, have been so unusual. And even though so many things in the world are actually much better than you would have expected, it has been extremely stressful. I'm not sure how much my own story is help for others, but one thing I actually did when it was at its absolute worst was I went into my job at the time, which happened to be this consulting firm, McKinsey. And I basically say, on Tuesday, my project ends, and I will not show up for a month. And then I got a lot of voicemail saying, "You can't do this, and this is not, and you don't have a month's holiday left. It's not, you don't have, you don't have so many holiday days. You can't do it." And I was just like, right now, I actually don't care. I'm just not coming back for a month. And if you don't want to see me again, then it doesn't matter. But I wouldn't recommend other people to do this. But actually it ended up that they were incredibly understanding, because I'd been on a really tough project for 6 months where I pushed myself way too hard. Of course, I could have done a lot to not end up there. So I can't blame anybody but myself for that. What we do in the book is, I'd say, we give some tools that people can use way before they end out into that kind of thing, that it becomes a either or, but something people can use in their daily lives.
Absolutely. And that's what I'd love to segue to, is healthy ambition. You talk about in the book that there are 3 elements that make up healthy ambition. Why don't you tell us what those are?
Yeah, this is, I think our biggest finding in the book is that when we interviewed people who were successful over time, and also appear to be living fulfilling lives, that they actually nurtured 3 things. So the first is pretty obvious. That's achievement. So they were very good at achieving. But what we also could see was how meticulous they were about always developing themselves and about their well-being. And well-being being much more than just kind of relaxing a little bit now and then, but really in being a full person, and have well-being, physically and mentally and socially, and also spiritually. For some people it's less important, but for a lot of people, to be able to live out that part of themselves is important. So the point here is these 3: achievement and growth and well-being. We can see that people who are consistently successful and fulfilled in life seem to nurture all 3. And at the same time, what we can see is that most people who compromise on one of them for a period of time are at very high risk of suddenly see significant reductions in the others. I mean, when you burn out, then you cannot perform. I mean, that's a kind of extreme example. And the other one is you can work incredibly hard for a long time and still experience a high level of well-being. I mean, I've tried to do that many times. I still do it actually with the book coming out and all the beautiful interest. And I'm very grateful. I'm actually working a lot at the moment, but it's a joy. But I think one of the things that is so important then not to forget is that third element, and that's the growth. So if you just go and repeat what you're used to do, then actually you are at a very high risk of burning out. As long as you take the time to reflect and really kind of try to, a little bit like a detective, find out what's going on in your life and try out now new tactics and experimenting a bit and learning. When you do that, then the risk of burn down goes down significantly. And there are actually research showing that the lack of learning is at least a significant root cause of burnout as intensive work in itself.
I love that. Really encouraging people to focus on their curiosity and continuing to spark their interest in other things, to learn more, to grow more. And that's obviously one of the core philosophies of Get Abstract. That's why we have so many books in our library. Obviously, one of yours, and to even have a classics section where people can, read abstracts of classic works of literature. But that stimulation of growth and wanting to continue to learn is so important and so healthy. I'd love to talk about too, the way you do in the book, you list the frenemies, as you talked about, which are those elements of ambition, which can aid you or hinder you, depending on which way they go. I'd love to ask you what advice you would offer people or what questions they can ask themselves to start reflecting on whether maybe their boldness or their perseverance or their convention is helping or hindering their growth.
I think actually, Kirsten, you've already said the most important thing is, I mean, to just actually have that reflection is a starting point.
Yeah.
And think about like what I'm really good at might actually prohibit me in doing certain things. So if you take, competitiveness, convention, some of the other frenemies here, it's like when they're very strong for you. So competitiveness means that you want to win almost everything all the time and also at any cost. And that last part is what can be very painful. I mean, it can be painful in terms of relationships. I mean, your friends and colleagues become pretty exhausted when you want to be better than them. It's very exhausting for yourself to show up as the absolute best all the time. Yeah. And to just reflect on what could be the flip side of this. What if I didn't have to be the best tomorrow, or at least in this meeting? And what if I just try to listen to the others instead of saying the most brilliant things? What if I didn't try to push things in the direction I want to see it, but basically see what comes, what emerges here in this meeting? Maybe somebody have a better idea than I have. So by not saying my idea, maybe I get introduced to things that are even better. Convention is I think also very significant in this, because in the corporate world, it's very strong. So what do we mean by convention? I mean, I think in almost any society, people know from a young age, what do you need to do to be a success in this society? I mean, do well in school, do well in sports, look good, kind of get a good education, ideally at a good university, get a significant other who is a fantastic person, get a good job, do well, get a promotion. And this is kind of convention. And the thing is that, and that's also how life is laid out. It's very easy in the beginning. So you're really taken good care of. But at some point you reach a complexity in your life. I mean, now you asked about leaders. I mean, the moment where you get a leadership responsibility, you're responsible for other people, and often to carry things out with a lot of uncertainty and ambiguity. And then if you also have a family life, and if you even have children, and if you actually have some kind of passion outside this, then you have a lot of things to juggle. And that means convention can often be, I mean, like a prison, because
Yeah.
you try to live up to so many things. So it's not necessarily to beat others like in competitiveness, but it's like you try to live up to all these expectations. And that can be really dreadful. And the moment where you realize that if you create a little bit more wiggle room for yourself, you might actually feel much better. You might learn more, and you might actually even perform better.
I love that. Yeah, that's why I really encourage people to read the book, because you do outline all of these kind of frenemies as you mentioned, and it really is a helpful tool to be able to identify where our strengths are and how those strengths can lead to burnout, so that we can manage them well, develop them well in ourselves, and especially others. And that's kind of my second to last question is, okay, so if you're a leader leading a team, how can you help stimulate some of these questions or reflections among people that you manage?
I think the simple answer is to have the conversation. Have the conversation about how important growth is and how important well-being is in addition to achievement. Have the talk about frenemies. I mean, how is it helping you, but how it's also hindering you? So that's the easy answer. And again, our philosophy with the book was to give people something they could kind of reflect based upon on their own. So that's also, I mean, I would love to see people kind of handing this book out to their team and say, read it, and then let's have a talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that would be very wise. Nicolai, last question for you. And it's something that I've been asking each one of our guests, and that is, what are you looking forward to in 2021?
Oh, I mean, I'm looking forward to so many things. I'm a very positive, optimistic person with a huge appetite on life.
Yeah,
but one of
you
the
could
things
tell.
is, I mean, right now, Nicolai, my co-author, and I are really on a ride with the book. And on the other hand, my kids are 10 and 12, and my wife and I really enjoy spending time together with the kids. So to be on that ride and still enjoy the family and everything that is happening to us, and most of it being very positive, is really what I look forward to in 2021.
I love it. Always try to end on a positive note here. And thank you for your optimism and positivity. It is definitely contagious. So Nicolai, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
And thank all of you so much for watching. Of course, season 2 of Understanding People is available on Get Abstract across our social media. So you can watch previous episodes. You can share this episode with a colleague or a friend. And of course, check out the book, Return on Ambition by Nicolai Tillisch and Nicolai Chen Nielsen. And stay tuned to our social media channels. We'll give you more information about our next episode of Understanding People. We wish you a very wonderful day wherever you're joining us from today, and we'll see you very soon. Bye.